The crystal wine glass shattered in my hand as the manila envelope hit the mahogany dining table. Blood trickled down my wrist, but I barely felt it. The pain was nothing compared to the humiliation burning through my chest as 20 pairs of eyes fixed on me. I'm Olive, and this was supposed to be just another Blake family Thanksgiving dinner. What is this? My voice came out steadier than I expected, though my fingers trembled as I reached for the envelope. Divorce papers. Emerson's voice was flat, practiced. He'd rehearsed this moment, probably with his mother Eleanor watching approvingly from her throne-like chair at the head of the table. I thought it would be better to do this here, with family present. Better for whom? The question died in my throat as Cora, my sister-in-law, let out a poorly disguised snicker. She'd been waiting for this moment since the day Emerson and I got married. "You're serving me divorce papers at Thanksgiving dinner?" The words tasted like acid. The turkey and cranberry sauce on my plate suddenly looked obscene. "Well, darling," Eleanor's voice dripped with false sympathy, "we thought it would be easier this way. The family could provide emotional support." Allie, my best friend who'd insisted on coming with me this year, grabbed my hand under the table. Thank God she was here. "Emotional support?" I echoed, watching blood drip onto the pristine white tablecloth. "Like the emotional support you showed when you called my art glorified finger painting last Christmas." "Oh, come now," Cora chimed in, wine sloshing in her glass. "Let's not pretend your little hobby was ever going to amount to anything. Remember that gallery showing where nobody bought a single piece?" The room erupted in cruel laughter. Even the cousins I thought were on my side joined in. I looked at Emerson, searching for any trace of the man who'd once defended my passion for art, who'd helped me set up my studio in the guest house of this very estate. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "I think what everyone's trying to say," Eleanor continued, dabbing her mouth with a napkin, "is that it's time to face reality. You're not cut out for this family, Olive. We need someone more substantial." My hand brushed against my purse, where a folded document had been sitting for months. The deed to this very house, the Blake family estate, transferred to my name in a moment of drunken generosity by Emerson on our 5th anniversary. He'd forgotten about it by morning, but I'd quietly filed the paperwork. "You're right, Eleanor." I stood up slowly, letting the blood drip freely onto her precious tablecloth. "I'm not cut out for this family. I'm better than it." "Excuse me?" Emerson finally looked at me, his face flushing red. "Allie, would you mind driving me to the emergency room? I seem to have cut myself." I turned to the stunned faces around the table. "Oh, and Eleanor? You might want to get the tablecloth cleaned quickly. Bloodstains are such a nightmare to remove, almost as difficult as eviction notices." "Eviction notices?" Eleanor's fork clattered against her plate. "What are you talking about?" I smiled, feeling a strange calm settle over me. "Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Enjoy the turkey. It might be your last meal in this dining room." The silence that followed me out was deafening. As Allie helped me to her car, I heard the chaos erupting behind us, raised voices, slamming doors, Emerson calling my name. "Holy shit," Allie whispered as we pulled away from the estate. "Are you okay?" I watched the mansion shrink in the side mirror, its windows glowing warm and inviting. A facade, just like everything else about the Blakes. "No," I answered honestly. "But I will be." "What did you mean about eviction notices?" I pulled out the deed with my good hand, careful not to get blood on it. "Remember when Emerson got drunk last year and started talking about how this house should belong to someone who actually appreciates its history?" Allie's eyes widened as she glanced at the document. "No way." "Yes way. He signed over the deed that night. I've been sitting on it, wondering if I should tell him." I looked down at my bleeding hand. "I guess now I know what to do with it." "What are you thinking?" The first genuine smile of the evening spread across my face. "I'm thinking this place would make an excellent art gallery. After all, Eleanor always said this house needed more culture." As we drove toward the hospital, I felt something shift inside me. The humiliation was still there, but it was being replaced by something else, determination. They wanted to break me? Fine. But they'd forgotten one crucial detail. Sometimes the best art comes from broken things. 7 stitches, I announced, holding up my bandaged hand as I walked into Allie's apartment. The doctor said I'm lucky I didn't sever any tendons. Lucky isn't exactly the word I'd use for anything that happened today. Allie handed me a glass of wine, in a plastic cup this time. Your phone's been blowing up, by the way. 23 missed calls from Emerson. I sank into her plush couch, exhausted. Let him sweat. So, are we going to talk about the nuclear bomb you're sitting on? Allie curled up in her armchair, tucking her feet under her. That deed is serious business, Olive. I know. I took a long sip of wine. I already called Riley. The lawyer? When? From the hospital. She's coming over first thing tomorrow morning. I pulled out my phone and finally looked at the messages. Oh, this is Rich. Listen to what Cora just sent. How dare you embarrass our family like this? After everything we've done for you? Allie snorted. Everything they've done for you? Like what? Criticize your art? Exclude you from family photos? Make snide comments about your clothes? The memories flooded back unbidden. Remember last summer's garden party? When Eleanor told all her friends I was the cleaning lady because she was embarrassed to introduce me as her daughter-in-law? God, yes. And Emerson just stood there pretending not to hear. He always just stood there. My voice cracked slightly. 5 years of marriage, and he never once truly stood up for me. The doorbell rang, making us both jump. Allie peeked through the peephole and cursed. It's Emerson. Olive! His voice carried through the door. I know you're in there. We need to talk. I shook my head at Allie, who called out, She doesn't want to see you, Emerson. Go home. This is ridiculous. Something thudded against the door, probably his fist. You can't just threaten my family's home. That deed was a mistake, and you know it. I walked to the door, my heart pounding. A mistake? Like serving me divorce papers at Thanksgiving dinner was a mistake? That's different. I was trying to... To what? Humiliate me? Congratulations, mission accomplished. I pressed my bandaged hand against the door. But you know what's funny? While you were all laughing at my failed art career, I was quietly building something else. Something you didn't notice because you were too busy being ashamed of me. What are you talking about? My paintings might not sell, Emerson, but my art restoration business is doing just fine. I've been saving every penny, waiting for the right opportunity. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. Guess what? You just handed it to me. The silence on the other side of the door was deafening. Go home, I said finally. Talk to your lawyer. I'll be talking to mine. His footsteps retreated slowly, and I slumped against the wall. Art restoration business? Allie raised an eyebrow. Since when? Remember Francisco, my old art professor? I pulled out my phone and showed her my business website. He's been mentoring me for the past year. Turns out rich people will pay a fortune to have their family heirlooms restored. I've been working out of his studio. Allie scrolled through the site, her eyes widening. These are incredible. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because they never asked. I took my phone back. They were so convinced I was a failure, they never bothered to look closer. Even Emerson stopped asking about my hobby months ago. My phone buzzed with a text from Riley. Got your message. Reviewed the deed. It's ironclad. Meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. to discuss options. Allie read the message over my shoulder. What exactly are you planning? I walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. That house has been a symbol of everything I'm not supposed to be. Everything the Blakes said I could never achieve. So I'm going to turn it into exactly what I am. An art gallery? Not just any gallery. I turned back to her, feeling more certain with every word. A restoration studio and gallery, a place where broken things become beautiful again, where the past gets a second chance to shine. They're going to fight you on this, Allie warned. Let them. I held up my bandaged hand. They've already drawn first blood. Now it's my turn. My phone buzzed again. Eleanor this time. You ungrateful little nobody. You have no idea what you're getting into. I showed the message to Allie, who whistled low. You know what this means, right? Yeah. I typed out a quick response. Actually, Eleanor, I do. See you in court. Then I blocked her number, and for the first time since that envelope hit the table, I felt truly free. Francisco's studio smelled like linseed oil and possibility. Morning light streamed through the tall windows, illuminating dust motes that danced around his latest restoration project, a Baroque frame that had seen better centuries. "So," he said, setting down his tools, "you finally told them to go to hell." Not in those exact words. I traced my fingers along the frame's intricate carvings, but close enough. "Good." Francisco pulled up 2 stools. "Now, tell me about this gallery idea of yours." I'd spent the morning with Riley, going over legal strategies. Now I needed something different, artistic vision. I pulled out my tablet and showed Francisco the floor plans of the Blake estate. "The main hall could be the primary gallery space," I explained, zooming in. "Those windows face north, perfect lighting. And look at these side rooms." "Stop." Francisco held up a paint-stained hand. "You're thinking too small." "What do you mean?" "You're planning a gallery, yes? But what are you going to fill it with?" He gestured around his studio. "These restoration projects we do, they're not just about fixing broken art. They're about bringing stories back to life." Understanding dawned. "You think I should showcase the restoration process itself?" "Exactly." His eyes lit up. "Imagine, one wing shows the before pieces, damaged, forgotten works. Another shows the restoration in progress. And the main gallery? That's where you display the finished pieces in all their glory." "Like a metaphor," I whispered. "Breaking something down to build it back stronger. Now you're thinking like an artist." Francisco walked to a cabinet and pulled out a dusty canvas. "Remember this?" My throat tightened. It was my first attempted restoration, a landscape I'd nearly ruined before Francisco taught me the proper techniques. "You were so afraid of making mistakes," he continued. "But look at it now." The painting gleamed in the morning light, its colors more vibrant than the original artist had ever achieved. "That's what I want," I said suddenly. "I want to show people that broken things don't have to stay broken. That sometimes the restoration is more beautiful than the original." Francisco's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. "Speaking of the Blakes, Eleanor's been calling me all morning." "What? Why?" "Trying to convince me to talk you out of this." He chuckled. "She offered to commission 3 pieces. "What did you tell her?" "I told her I don't work with people who mock my best student." He squeezed my shoulder. "Now, let's talk about your opening exhibition." My phone rang, Emerson's number. I declined the call. "He's persistent," Francisco observed. "He's desperate. The family lawyer probably told them how solid the deed is." I pulled out my sketchbook. "But enough about them. I want to show you some ideas." Francisco stopped me again. "Before you do, I have something for you." He disappeared into his storage room and returned with a large, covered canvas. "I've been saving this for the right moment." He pulled off the sheet, and I gasped. It was one of my paintings from 2 years ago, a self-portrait I'd abandoned after Cora called it amateurish at a family dinner. "You kept it?" "I restored it," he corrected. "Added some touches here and there. Look closely." I stepped forward. The woman in the painting, me, stood in a shaft of light, her face half in shadow. But Francisco had added something, a subtle crown of gold leaf in her hair, barely visible except when the light hit it just right. "You always had a queen inside you," he said softly. "You just needed the right light to see it." Tears pricked my eyes. This has to be in the opening exhibition. "Of course, but not alone." He grabbed a fresh canvas and set it on an easel. "I think it's time for a companion piece. The queen claiming her throne, perhaps?" My phone buzzed again. A text from Riley. "Eleanor's lawyer reached out. They want to negotiate." I showed Francisco the message. He handed me a brush. "What do you want to do?" he asked. I dipped the brush in deep royal purple. "I want to paint." "Good answer." He set up his own canvas beside mine. "Remember what I taught you about composition? The eye needs somewhere to land. And about color? Sometimes the boldest statement is the quietest shade. And about revenge?" I paused, brush hovering over canvas. You never taught me about revenge. Yes, I did. He smiled. Every time we restored a painting that someone had given up on, every time we proved them wrong with beauty instead of anger. I looked at the blank canvas, then at my bandaged hand, then at the text from Riley. Finally, I looked at Francisco. Teach me more, I said. And as the morning light filled the studio, we began to paint my revenge. Not in blacks and reds, but in colors that would make even Eleanor Blake wish she'd seen my worth sooner. The cafe was exactly halfway between my apartment and the Blake estate, neutral territory. Emerson sat at a corner table, his usual crisp appearance slightly rumpled. 3 days of stubble shadowed his jaw, and his tie hung loose around his neck. You look terrible, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. Olive. He straightened up. Thank you for coming. You said it was important. I kept my bandaged hand visible on the table between us. A reminder. The waitress approached, but Emerson waved her away. I need you to stop this madness. Mother is beside herself. The house has been in our family for generations. Interesting. I tilted my head. Is that what you told yourself when you planned to serve me divorce papers at Thanksgiving dinner? Mother would approve of this? He had the grace to look uncomfortable. That was poorly handled. Poorly handled? I laughed, drawing looks from nearby tables. You humiliated me in front of your entire family. They laughed, Emerson. They laughed while I bled. I never meant what? For me to fight back? For me to be anything more than the disappointing artist wife you could never quite bring yourself to defend? He reached across the table for my hand. I pulled back. I have an offer, he said, switching tactics. The family is willing to buy the house from you. Name your price. Of course, everything was always about money with the Blakes. Not interested. Be reasonable, Olive. What are you going to do with a house that size? Turn it into some sort of... He waved his hand dismissively. Art space? Actually, yes. I pulled out my tablet and showed him Francisco's preliminary designs. The main hall will be the gallery. The east wing will house the restoration studio. The west wing will be... Stop! Emerson pinched the bridge of his nose. This is ridiculous. You can't just... Can't what? Succeed? Make something of myself? I leaned forward. Or is it that you can't stand the thought of me turning your precious family estate into something that actually matters? Mother will never allow this. Mother doesn't have a choice. I stood up. Neither do you. He grabbed my wrist. Wait, please. There's something else. I sat back down, curious despite myself. Cora's pregnant, he said quietly. She and her husband were supposed to move into the estate next month. It's tradition. The next generation always raises their children there. The news hit like a physical blow. Cora, who'd made my life hell for 5 years, was going to have everything she'd ever wanted. That's not my problem. Olive, please, if not for me, then for who? The family that never accepted me? The sister-in-law who mocked every piece of art I ever created? I pulled my wrist free. You know what tradition I'm starting? Being the first person in that house who actually creates something instead of just inheriting it. His face hardened. You're making a mistake. No, Emerson. I made a mistake 5 years ago when I married you. I stood again. Tell Cora congratulations. I'm sure she'll raise her child to be just as kind and accepting as the rest of you. This isn't over, he called after me as I walked away. Actually, it is. I turned back one last time. Oh, and you might want to warn your mother. The contractors start next week. I'd hate for all that construction noise to disturb her afternoon tea. Outside, I called Allie. How'd it go? She asked. About as well as expected. I started walking, needing to move. Did you know Cora's pregnant? What? No way. Yeah, apparently I'm destroying some grand family tradition by not letting them raise the next generation of entitled Blakes in that house. So what are you going to do? I stopped at a red light, watching people rush past. I'm going to create something beautiful in that house. Something that lasts. And maybe, years from now, Cora's kid will walk into my gallery and see that there's more to life than tradition and appearances. They're not going to make this easy, Allie warned. Good. I touched my healing hand. The best art never comes easy. My phone buzzed with a text from Francisco. Started working on the crown piece. Come see. I have to go, I told Allie. Time to make some art. Give 'em hell, she said. I smiled, already picturing Eleanor's face when the construction crews arrived. No, I'm going to give them beauty. That'll hurt them more. The light turned green, and I crossed the street, leaving the cafe and Emerson's desperate pleas behind. Ahead of me lay Francisco's studio, and beyond that, a future I was finally ready to paint for myself. The sound of power tools echoed through the Blake estate as workers transformed the space. I stood in what used to be Eleanor's precious formal dining room, now stripped bare except for my easel and canvases. The lighting system will be installed by Friday, the contractor said, checking his tablet. And the gallery rails are ready to go up as soon as we finish prepping the walls. Perfect. I stepped over cables and drop cloths to examine the north wall. And the security system? State of the art. Nobody's getting in here without your say-so. A commotion outside drew our attention. Through the window, I saw Eleanor standing at the front gate, gesturing wildly at the security guard. Speaking of which, I sighed. Excuse me a moment. I walked out to find Eleanor in full battle mode, designer handbag clutched like a weapon. "This is outrageous!" she shrieked. "That rent-a-cop won't let me into my own home." "Not your home anymore," I reminded her. "And his name is Marcus. He's former military and deserves respect." "You!" she sputtered, face reddening. "You're destroying everything. Do you have any idea what you're doing to this family?" "Actually, I do." I gestured to the dumpster filled with her precious Victorian wallpaper. "I'm giving this house a purpose beyond hosting your toxic dinner parties. How dare you?" "No, Eleanor, how dare you?" I stepped closer. "For 5 years, I tried to be good enough for your family. I smiled through your insults, endured your criticism, watched you turn my husband against me piece by piece. Emerson made his own choices." "Yes, he did. And so did I." I pulled out my phone and showed her Francisco's latest Instagram post. My restoration of a damaged Renaissance Madonna, now gleaming with new life. The post had over 50,000 likes. "What is this?" "This is what I've been doing while you were all laughing at my little hobby. Building a reputation, creating connections, proving that broken things can become masterpieces." A truck pulled up, carrying the custom gallery lighting. Eleanor watched, her perfectly manicured hands trembling. "The opening is in 3 weeks," I continued. "Critics from every major art publication will be here. They're particularly interested in my piece about family betrayal. You know, the one inspired by Thanksgiving? You wouldn't dare. Watch me." I nodded to Marcus, who stepped forward. "Now, unless you'd like to be escorted off the property, I suggest you leave. I have work to do." As Eleanor stormed off, Francisco appeared beside me, carrying a fresh canvas. "Nicely handled," he said. "Ready to get back to work?" Inside, I stood before my centerpiece, a massive triptych that dominated the main wall. The left panel showed a shattered wine glass, drops of blood-red wine frozen in mid-fall. The center panel was still in progress, a chaos of dark colors and sharp edges. The right panel remained blank. "I can't figure out how to end it," I admitted, picking up my brush. "Because you're not at the end yet." Francisco adjusted his glasses. The story's still unfolding. My phone buzzed. A text from Ali. "OMG, you need to see this." She'd sent a link to Cora's social media post, a long rant about family loyalty and artistic sacrilege, complete with photos of the estate's ongoing transformation. The comments section was unexpectedly divided, with several prominent art world figures defending the renovation. "Look at this one." Francisco pointed to a comment from a famous gallery owner. "Bold vision. Can't wait to see the space." I smiled, adding a streak of gold to the central panel. "Think they'll come to the opening?" "They already RSVP'd, along with half the city's art scene." He squeezed my shoulder. "Your revenge is going viral, my dear." I stepped back, studying my work. The paint glistened, wet and alive, like an open wound healing into something beautiful. It's not just revenge anymore, I realized. It's resurrection. A crash from the foyer interrupted us. We rushed out to find one of Eleanor's old portraits had fallen, its frame cracked. "Should we restore it?" Francisco asked. I picked up the painting, running my fingers along its gilded frame. "No, this one stays broken. Sometimes we need reminders of what we're leaving behind." I propped it against the wall, next to my supplies. A visual contrast between the old world and the new one I was creating. 3 weeks, Francisco mused. Think you'll be ready? I dipped my brush in paint, the color of dawn. I already am. They just don't know it yet. Returning to my triptych, I began to work on the final panel, finally seeing how it should end. Not with destruction or triumph, but with transformation. The moment when broken glass becomes a prism, scattering light in all directions. Behind me, the workers continued their symphony of renewal, and somewhere in the city, the Blakes plotted their next move. But here, in this room filled with possibility, I was already free. Opening night. The transformed Blake estate hummed with energy as hundreds of guests filtered through its renewed spaces. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over exposed brick walls, and the scent of fresh paint mingled with expensive perfume. "Is that the director from The Modern?" Allie whispered, nudging me. "And oh my God, there's that famous art critic from The Times." I smoothed down my black dress, designer, purchased with restoration money. "Focus, Allie. Any sign of the Blakes?" "Not yet, but—" She stopped mid-sentence. "Scratch that. Eleanor just walked in, and she brought reinforcements." Eleanor swept through the front door like an avenging angel, Cora and Emerson flanking her. She wore funeral black, as if mourning her former home. Cora's baby bump was visible under her tight red dress. Deep breath. Francisco appeared at my elbow, champagne in hand. "Remember, this is your night." I watched Eleanor's face as she took in the changes. Gone were her precious antique wallpapers and stuffy portraits. In their place, clean gallery walls displayed my work, a journey of destruction and rebirth told through art. "Ladies and gentlemen," Francisco's voice carried across the crowd, "if I could have your attention, please. It's time for our artist to say a few words." The room quieted. I stepped onto the small platform we'd set up, feeling hundreds of eyes on me. Eleanor's glare could have frozen hell. "Thank you all for coming tonight," I began. "This house has a long history of tradition. For generations, it stood as a symbol of legacy and inheritance. Today, it begins a new chapter." I gestured to the walls around us. "Each piece you see tells a story of transformation, of taking something broken and making it not just whole again, but better. Different. True." The crowd murmured appreciatively. Several critics were taking notes. "And now," I continued, "I'd like to unveil the centerpiece of tonight's exhibition." 2 assistants pulled the black cloth from the triptych. Gasps echoed through the room. In the final panel, I'd painted what looked like thousands of shards of broken glass, each one catching and reflecting light differently, creating a kaleidoscope of color and possibility. "I call it Thanksgiving Grace," I said, looking directly at Eleanor. The art critic from The Times stepped forward. "The emotional depth is stunning, the progression from destruction to transcendence. Tell us, what inspired this piece?" Before I could answer, Eleanor's voice cut through the crowd. "I'll tell you what inspired it. Spite. Revenge. This entire spectacle is nothing but a tantrum from a woman who couldn't accept her place in our family." The room went silent. Cameras turned toward the drama unfolding. "You're right, Eleanor," I said calmly. "This is about not accepting my place. Because the place you tried to put me in was too small, too dark, too false." "How dare you?" "No." My voice rang out stronger. "How dare you come here and try to diminish this? Look around. Every person in this room sees the beauty I've created. Every critic, every collector, every artist. They all understand what you never could." "And what's that?" Cora sneered. "That true legacy isn't about preserving the past. It's about transforming it into something meaningful." I gestured to the triptych. Every broken piece in these paintings came from something real. That wine glass from Thanksgiving. Those shattered frames you threw away. Even the tears I shed. They're all here, made beautiful. The Times critic was scribbling frantically. Eleanor's face had gone pale. "You think you've won something here?" she hissed. "You've destroyed our home." "No, Eleanor, I've given it purpose." I picked up a glass of champagne. "To new beginnings." The crowd raised their glasses, effectively dismissing Eleanor's outburst. As conversations resumed, I watched Emerson lead his mother and sister away from the main gallery. "Holy shit," Allie breathed. "That was amazing." Francisco squeezed my shoulder. "Look." A wealthy collector was placing a red dot next to the triptych, sold, for more money than I'd ever seen in my life. Around the room, other red dots were appearing next to my pieces. "Olive?" A quiet voice behind me. I turned to find Emerson. "The divorce papers are on your lawyer's desk," I said before he could speak. "Signed." "I know, He looked around the transformed space. "I never knew you could do all this." "You never looked." I turned away from him, toward a group of admirers waiting to speak with me. "Goodbye, Emerson." As I moved through my gallery, my space, my creation, I felt lighter with each step. The Blakes had tried to break me, but they'd only succeeded in helping me create something extraordinary. The Times critic caught my eye and raised his glass. Behind him, through the window, I could see Eleanor's car pulling away into the night. Let her go, I thought. The house had a new story now, and this one, finally, was mine to tell. "Have you seen this?" Allie burst into my studio, waving her tablet. "The Times review just dropped." I set down my restoration tools, carefully stepping away from the 18th century landscape I'd been working on. 1 week after the opening, and the buzz hadn't died down. "Read it to me," I said, wiping my hands on my apron. In a stunning debut, artist and restoration expert Olive transforms family drama into transcendent art. The converted Blake estate now stands as a testament to rebirth, both architectural and personal. Allie looked up, grinning. "It goes on like that for 3 paragraphs. My phone buzzed. Riley calling. "Hold that thought." "Turn on the news," Riley said without preamble. "Channel 7. I grabbed the remote for the small TV I kept in the studio for background noise. The headline made my stomach drop. Prominent family faces financial scandal. Sources reveal that the Blake Investment Group has been under federal investigation for months, the reporter was saying. Eleanor Blake and her son Emerson are accused of mismanaging client funds. "Oh my God." Allie's hand flew to her mouth. "That's not all," Riley said through the phone. "They've been using the estate as collateral for loans. If you hadn't gotten that deed when you did, the implications hit me like a physical blow. They would have lost the house anyway." "Exactly. And any art or artifacts inside would have been seized as assets?" On screen, footage showed Eleanor being escorted from her office building, head down, ignoring reporters' questions. Emerson was nowhere in sight. "Where's Emerson?" I asked Riley. "Word is he's cooperating with investigators. Turned on his mother to save himself." Of course he had. Emerson had always been good at saving himself. My other line beeped, Cora's number. After a moment's hesitation, I switched calls. "What do you want, Cora?" "Please." Her voice was thick with tears. "I need your help." "Why would I help you?" "Because I'm about to lose everything." She broke down, sobbing. "The baby. I don't have anywhere to go." Francisco walked in, took one look at my face, and mouthed, "What's wrong?" I held up a finger. "Cora, I know I was horrible to you," she cut in. "I was jealous. You had real talent, real passion, and I just had family money. Money that turned out to be stolen." I closed my eyes, remembering all the times she'd mocked my art, my dreams, my very existence in her perfect world. "The guest house," I said finally. "It's small, but it's clean. You can stay there until you figure things out." Silence on the line, then quietly, "Why would you do this?" "Because I'm not you." I looked at my triptych hanging on the studio wall. "And because sometimes broken things deserve a chance to be rebuilt." After hanging up, I filled Francisco and Allie in on everything. "You're really going to help her?" Allie asked incredulously. "The guest house is where I used to paint," I said, running my hands over the antique frame I'd been restoring. "It's where I learned who I really was, despite everything they did to break me. Maybe Cora needs that too. Francisco nodded approvingly. Speaking of rebuilding, he pulled out a newspaper clipping. The city's Historic Preservation Society wants to hire us. Apparently our work here has impressed them. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Riley. Eleanor's lawyer reached out. She wants to make a deal. No deals, I texted back. The house stays as it is. You know, Allie said, reading over my shoulder. You could probably buy their entire company for pennies now. I shook my head. I don't want their company. I want this. I gestured around the studio at the half-finished restorations and new works in progress. This is real. This matters. Through the window, I watched a car pull up. Cora, with a small suitcase. She looked lost, nothing like the proud woman who'd laughed at my pain just weeks ago. I should go help her get settled, I said. Are you sure about this? Allie asked one more time. I picked up a small painting from my workbench, a simple landscape I'd restored, where damage had left beautiful patterns in the aged varnish. Sometimes the cracks are what make something interesting. Francisco smiled. Go. Be interesting. As I walked out to meet Cora, I passed the spot where that wine glass had shattered on Thanksgiving. Now it was marked by a small brass plaque. Here begins the restoration. Karma had come for the Blakes, but not in the way I'd expected, and somehow, in the midst of their destruction, I'd found a way to create something lasting, something true, something that finally was completely my own. The colors need to be warmer here, Francisco said, pointing to a section of the newly restored painting. See how the light catches? I adjusted my magnifying glass, studying the brushstrokes. The restoration studio hummed with activity, 3 apprentices working at their stations, Cora cataloging pieces at her desk by the window. The doorbell chimed. Through the security camera, I saw Eleanor standing at the gate. Want me to send her away? Cora offered, one hand resting on her very pregnant belly. No. I set down my tools. I'll handle this. Eleanor had aged years in just a few months. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by simple slacks and a sweater. She clutched a familiar-looking canvas. What do you want, Eleanor? She held out the canvas. This was in my mother's attic. I thought, maybe you could restore it. I unwrapped the painting carefully. A wedding portrait. Eleanor and her late husband on their wedding day. The canvas was cracked, the colors dulled by decades of neglect. Why bring it to me? Because you're the best. She swallowed hard. And because I owe you an apology. I studied the painting without responding. I was wrong about you, she continued. About your talent, your vision, everything. I was so focused on preserving what was, I couldn't see what could be. Like your son's illegal activities? She flinched. I enabled him, protected him when I should have. She gestured at the transformed estate. You did what I never could. You made something new. Inside, I could see Cora watching us, her face unreadable. The restoration will take time, I said finally, and it won't be cheap. I understand. I can pay. No, I met her eyes. You'll work for it. We need someone to manage the gallery's administrative side. Cora's going on maternity leave soon. Eleanor stared at me, then at the building behind me, at the brass plaque, at the elegant gallery spaces visible through the windows, at her daughter working inside. You'd trust me? After everything? Trust is earned. I handed her a business card. Be here Monday at 9. We'll start with filing. As she turned to leave, I added, Eleanor, the painting, I'll make it beautiful again, but it won't be exactly the same. I know. She smiled sadly. Maybe that's the point. Back inside, Cora was waiting. You're really hiring her? Everyone deserves a chance to restore what's broken. I set the wedding portrait on my workbench. Even Eleanor. Even Emerson? He made his choices. I picked up my tools again. This is about making new choices. Francisco appeared with fresh coffee. Speaking of choices, the Historic Society called again. They want us to handle the restoration of the old theater downtown. Take it, I said. But first, help me with this. Together, we examined Eleanor's wedding portrait. pointing out areas that needed attention, discussing techniques. Through the window, I could see Eleanor still standing at the gate, looking up at the house she'd lost, and maybe finally seeing it for what it had become. My phone buzzed, a text from Emerson. "I'm sorry for everything." I deleted it without responding. Some things weren't meant to be restored. "Look at this detail," Francisco said, pointing to a tiny flower in the portrait's background. "Almost invisible now, but once we bring it back, it'll change the whole composition," I finished. "Exactly." He squeezed my shoulder. "Just like you did." The afternoon light streamed through the windows, catching the gold leaf in my triptych, making it shimmer. Below it, new students worked on their own restorations, learning to see beauty in broken things. Cora waddled over with paperwork. "The gallery bookings are full through next season, and that critic from the Times wants to do a follow-up piece." "Tell him yes," I said, carefully beginning the cleaning process on Eleanor's portrait. "But make sure he mentions our restoration school. That's the future." As I worked, I could feel the painting's history under my fingers, decades of joy and pain, pride and loss, all waiting to be transformed, not erased, but renewed, made stronger by its scars, just like me. "Ready to begin?" Francisco asked, preparing his tools. I looked around my studio, at my students learning their craft, at Cora finding her place, at the space I'd created from the ashes of betrayal, at the legacy I was building, piece by restored piece. "Yes," I said, dipping my brush in solvent. "I'm ready." And as I began to work, bringing light back to Eleanor's forgotten memories, I realized that this moment, this place, this purpose, was the revenge I'd really wanted all along. Not destruction, but creation. Not endings, but beginnings. Not broken, but beautifully restored.
My name is Amanda, and I'm a 28-year-old editor at a famous fashion magazine. My husband Zion, 35, is the next president of the large company his father runs. Zion and I first met on a New York City street corner 5 years ago. Back then, I was still a new editor struggling to make my way. One afternoon, I was hurrying to work when I bumped into Zion, scattering my papers everywhere. As I frantically tried to gather them, Zion flashed me a kind smile and helped me pick everything up. Our eyes met in that moment and we felt an instant, powerful connection. Zion asked me out to dinner after that, and slowly but surely, we grew closer. I was increasingly drawn to his kindness and gentlemanly manner. Then a year ago, we got married and have been enjoying a blissful life together. One day, I was sitting on the sofa at home with Zion. With slightly trembling hands, I picked up an envelope from my OBGYN. "Let's look together," I said softly. Zion nodded, clasping my hand tightly. We took a deep breath, then opened it to find an ultrasound photo and test results inside. "It's a girl." I cried out joyfully. Zion broke into a huge grin and embraced me. "Thank you, Amanda. Our darling little girl. I can't wait to see your face. Daddy already loves you so much." We held each other, savoring our happiness as the room filled with an atmosphere of pure joy. "We have to tell our parents. They'll be thrilled," I said, smiling. But Zion's expression darkened a little. "Do you think Mom will be happy about it?" Zion's mother, Hazel, holds conservative views and believes in male superiority. "It'll be fine. I'm sure she'll love our daughter," I said brightly. That weekend, Zion and I visited Hazel's house. As we had tea in the living room, I shared our big news. "Mother, we've been blessed with a baby. It's a girl." Hazel's face instantly clouded over. "A girl? The successor to the company has to be a boy." "Mom, times have changed," Zion interjected. "Be quiet," Hazel yelled. "A girl who can't be the successor is useless." With that, she tried to kick me in the stomach right in front of my eyes. Shocked, I protectively placed my hands over my belly. "Mother!" Zion shouted, shielding me. Hazel glared at us, shaking with rage. "The company successor must be a boy. I won't accept a girl." Tears welled up in my eyes as I clung to Zion's arm. He stared at his mother sternly. "That's enough, Mother. We're leaving," he declared. We left Hazel's house in silence. The moment we got in the car, I broke down sobbing. Zion held me tenderly. "It's okay. We'll protect our daughter. Don't let Mother's words get to you." After leaving Hazel's, Zion and I had a heart-to-heart. "Mom just needs a little more time. I know once she sees our baby girl's face, she'll open her heart," he assured me. I decided to believe in his words. As the pregnancy progressed, Zion and I gradually adapted to our new life. I continued working while prioritizing the baby's health, taking on duties within reason. Zion started proactively helping out at home, making breakfast so I could relax a bit, tidying up before heading to work, giving his full support however he could. He'd even come home early from the office sometimes. "Take it easy, Amanda. Your health is the most important thing," he'd say, sweetly caring for me. I was deeply grateful for his dedication. Around 5 months into the pregnancy, my belly started getting noticeably bigger. "Today's the day we hear the baby's heartbeat," Zion said excitedly. At the hospital, when we heard our child's robust heartbeat for the first time, we were at a loss for words, overcome with emotion. "Beloved daughter, Mommy and Daddy are here," Zion spoke to my stomach. I instinctively squeezed his hand, my heart full of joy. Zion's support bordered on overboard at times. One weekend, fretting over my growing belly, he spent the whole day shopping and cleaning. But feeling my body getting sluggish from just sitting, I suggested, "I appreciate it, Zion. But why don't we go for a little walk together? Moderate exercise is important." He agreed, if a bit hesitant. We strolled through a neighborhood park, enjoying the peaceful time together. Our bond as a couple deepened along with our preparations for the baby. Unfortunately, Hazel's attitude didn't improve at all. She harassed us with relentless calls to Zion's office and late-night visits to our home. One day, Hazel showed up at my workplace and began screaming in front of my colleagues. "This woman is a useless fool who can't give us a successor." Humiliated and furious, I turned bright red as I escorted her out of the building. "Please stop this, Mother. I'm proud to be having a daughter," I pleaded tearfully. But Hazel glared down at me coldly. "We don't need a girl. If you can't bear a successor, then get out of this family," she declared. On another occasion, Hazel barged into a meeting at my office. "Amanda, "You're still working here?" she yelled. I tried to respond calmly despite being flustered. "Mother, I intend to balance work and childrearing. I haven't started maternity leave yet, but I'll take time off when appropriate. You needn't worry." But Hazel refused to listen. "You became worthless the moment you conceived a girl. Quit your job immediately," she said, getting emotional. I fought to maintain my composure, but couldn't stop tears from rolling down my cheeks. Just then, my boss intervened. "Ma'am, this is a workplace. Please leave at once," he said, escorting Hazel out of the room. Of course, I told Zion about what happened. He was distraught over his mother's behavior, but desperate to protect me. He called Hazel right away. "Enough already, Mom. Amanda is my cherished wife nurturing our child during this crucial time. Is it really so hard to love your granddaughter just because she's a girl?" But Hazel wouldn't heed her son's words. In fact, her abnormal conduct only escalated from there. One day, Amanda came home from work to find the house ransacked. Fine china was smashed, furniture badly scratched. And on the living room table was a note, "Give us a boy." Hazel had also somehow obtained the contact info for Amanda's friends and was harassing them too. She bombarded them with comments like, "Amanda acts high and mighty but can't even bear a son," and "You should cut ties with Amanda." She was especially relentless in calling Amanda's best friend Jessica. "You're friends with Amanda, right? Can't you convince her to quit her job? There's no future for a woman who births a girl. She simply must have a boy." Jessica immediately let me know and reported Hazel's remarks. She reassured me, "You've done nothing wrong, Amanda. We're all on your side." When Zion found out about Hazel's actions, he tried reasoning with her again. "How can you be so cruel, Mom? What you're doing is deeply wounding not only Amanda, but the baby too." But Hazel wouldn't listen. "The moment you learned it was a girl, that child became useless to me," she said coldly. Zion was devastated. Hazel's abnormal behavior grew more serious by the day. We even considered contacting the police. But because she was family, we were determined to keep seeking a resolution through discussion until the very end. That said, the stress from Hazel took an increasing toll on my already fragile health during pregnancy. Unable to bear her behavior, I sometimes broke down in tears, asking, "How did it come to this? Our daughter is coming into this world to be loved." In those moments, Zion was always there to comfort me. "Amanda, you've done nothing wrong. The problem lies with Mom. Let's cherish our daughter. Surely the day will come when Mom understands too." Then one day, Hazel visited our home with a shocking suggestion. "Amanda, if you can give birth to a boy, I'll accept you. So abort the child in your womb right now and get pregnant with a boy." I was stunned. Hazel was imposing her own values, even threatening the life of her own granddaughter. I felt an inexpressible sadness. Trembling with rage, Zion told his mother, "Enough, Mom. I've realized I can't change your thinking. But we're having this girl. Even if you don't accept her, we're still a family. Hazel seemed displeased by the determination in her son's eyes. Without a word, she left our house. Time passed and my due date approached. The conflict with Hazel remained unresolved, but Zion and I continued peacefully preparing to welcome our daughter. 3 days before my due date, I noticed contractions starting. Zion frantically called the hospital and helped me into the car. "Take deep breaths, Amanda. We'll be at the hospital soon," he said, desperately encouraging me as he drove. Upon arriving, I was immediately admitted. Zion held my hand tightly. "You're strong. I'm always on your side." After a long labor, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. The moment the obstetrician placed her in my arms, I couldn't stop crying. "Hello, beloved daughter. Welcome to the world." Zion was speechless with emotion. "Thank you, Amanda. You're the best wife and mother." We named our daughter Aria. She became our treasure, the center of our family. As for Hazel, she showed no signs of celebrating Aria's birth. She didn't visit the hospital or respond to our attempts to contact her. A few days after coming home, Hazel came to our house. "May I see my grandchild?" she asked coldly. Though wary, Zion let his mother in. Hazel entered the living room where I was sitting holding Aria. "Mother, it's been a while. This is Aria, your granddaughter." Looking down at her, Hazel's expression was icy. So it was a girl after all. In the end, no successor was born. Zion raised his voice. "Enough already, Mom. Aria is our precious daughter." With a sardonic smile, Hazel said, "That's all well and good. But this child has no value to your company." I trembled with anger, but Zion placed a hand on my shoulder to calm me. Hazel continued, "As far as I'm concerned, this child and I have no connection. I never want to see her again." Zion took a deep breath and faced his mother. "Mom, are you sure about that? Because this child's true identity is..." Hazel waved her hand dismissively. "True identity? What are you talking about? A girl has no value." With a resolute expression, Zion said, "Mom, don't you know about grandfather's will?" At those words, Hazel furrowed her brow. "Will? What do you mean?" Zion quietly began to explain. Grandfather rejected male chauvinism and deliberately left a will bequeathing his assets to a female heir. In other words, Aria is the legitimate successor to the company. Hazel listened in disbelief. "That's absurd. To think father left such a will." Zion continued, "Mom, times have changed. Grandfather strongly desired to see gender equality realized." Suddenly, Hazel's demeanor shifted. "Ah, I see. You're right. It's an age of gender equality now. So Aria will be the successor. Well then, I'll have to dote on her." Zion and I stared at Hazel with a mix of shock and anger. He raised his voice, "Mom, you rejected your granddaughter until just now, and now you're conveniently changing your tune." Hazel made excuses in a flustered manner. No, that's not it. I've had a change of heart. From now on, I'll love Arya. I gave a cold smile and declared, Mother, you said you wanted nothing to do with this child. As you wish, you will have absolutely no involvement with the assets Arya inherits. Hazel turned pale, at a loss for words. Zion added sternly, Mom, you rejected Arya and deeply wounded Amanda. Someone like that has no right to have a say in our daughter's inheritance. Desperately, Hazel tried to justify herself. That's not. I actually do love Arya. I looked at her coldly. Love her? Mother, what you've done to us can't be called love. Hurting our daughter then changing your stance based on selfish interests is shameful. In a firm tone, Zion said, Mom, Arya's assets are her own. I'm sorry, but we won't allow you any involvement. That's our answer to the awful way you've treated us. Hazel was speechless, collapsing on the spot. Icily, I declared, I can't forgive you, Mother. Please leave this house at once. Hazel shakily stood. Fine. I get it. Leaving those words behind, she left our home. Zion embraced me. Amanda, you did the right thing. Mom needs to face her own mistakes. 5 years later, Arya had grown into an energetic 5-year-old girl. With adorable curly blonde hair and striking big blue eyes, she was the apple of our eye as Zion and I delighted in our happy, fulfilling days with her. Arya was full of curiosity, loving to read picture books and play in the park. One day, her kindergarten held sports day practice. Arya was chosen to run a race and trained hard. But some kids had trouble running, putting them out of sync. Arya stood up. Let's all do our best together. Don't leave any friends behind, let's all reach the goal. Her bright words seemed to encourage the other children. The teachers were impressed by Arya's leadership too. That's our Arya. Becoming a big sister who looks out for everyone. She smiled shyly at the praise. We watched Arya grow up healthy, cherishing and nurturing her potential. We could never forget Hazel's horrible actions, but it was healing for us to see our daughter becoming such a cheerful, sweet-natured child. 15 more years passed. Arya had matured into a beautiful, intelligent 20-year-old woman. I was promoted to editor-in-chief of the fashion magazine, while Zion succeeded his father as CEO. Arya interned at her father's company while still in college and was officially welcomed as a member of the firm upon graduation. She was assigned to the corporate strategy department, where she quickly demonstrated her skills despite her young age. One day, Zion consulted Arya about the company's future. You are the one who will carry this company forward. The day will come, not too long from now, when you'll be at the helm, he said proudly of his daughter's growth. Nodding thoughtfully at her father's words, Arya declared with conviction, Dad, I will grow this company into a global enterprise. And I'll make it a company where anyone can thrive, upholding the principle of gender equality. That's my dream. Zion's eyes crinkled at Arya's proclamation as he gripped her shoulder firmly. If anyone can do it, it's you. I'll support your dream with everything I've got. 20 years ago, Hazel's prejudice and discrimination caused me and my family great pain. But we overcame those hardships and deepened our bonds. Amidst this, Amanda and Zion's wedding anniversary arrived. To express her gratitude to her parents, Arya personally planned a commemorative dinner. "Mom, Dad, today is a special day for you too, so I'm going to be your host," she announced happily, as Zion and Amanda smiled sentimentally at their daughter's growth. The dinner table was adorned with mementos of Amanda and Zion's life together, carefully arranged by Arya. Their wedding photo, a drawing of the family Arya made as a child, a recent picture of the three of them. "Mom, Dad, I'm so happy I was born into this family. Thanks to your protection, I can pursue my dreams," Arya said, bringing tears to her parents' eyes. "We were able to persevere because we had you, Arya. Your smile is our source of strength," Zion said, clasping his daughter's hand. "You are our pride and joy," Amanda added. The trio clinked glasses, savoring their happy moment. The bonds of this family that had overcome such hardship held a strength that could weather any adversity. A few years later, I heard some concerning news about Hazel from my best friend Jessica. "Amanda, I saw Hazel in town the other day, and she seemed a bit off," Jessica said, making me furrow my brow. "Off how?" "She was wearing dirty clothes and her hair was a mess. She looked like a homeless person. I tried to talk to her, but the moment she saw my face, she ran off like she was trying to escape." I was left with mixed feelings upon hearing Jessica's account. I couldn't hide my shock at how much my former mother-in-law had changed. I also heard from an acquaintance of Zion's that while Hazel was living alone, she often fell behind on rent. "She's living on a pension and seems to have no money. But she's too proud to rely on anyone." The acquaintance continued, "I heard she was even caught shoplifting at the supermarket by a security guard recently. She must be struggling to afford food." Taken together, these stories painted a picture of Hazel being driven into a corner both financially and emotionally. Learning of her current state, I was at a loss for words. Zion also seemed shocked, saying, "I can't believe this is happening to Mom. What can we do?" I mused aloud, but Zion shook his head. "Amanda, I appreciate your sentiment, but Mom badly hurt you and Arya back then. That's not something I can easily forgive, even now." Though conflicted, I had to agree with Zion's view. Without knowing if Hazel had reflected on her past mistakes, we couldn't simply reach out. More than anything, I myself hadn't fully forgiven her treatment of me. "Still, it makes me sad somehow," I said. While accepting my feelings, Zion encouraged me not to lose hope. "I'm disappointed about Mom too. But we need to focus on our own lives. Being there for Arya's future, fulfilling our dreams together, that's what matters most." I smiled at Zion's forward-looking perspective. "You're right. We have Arya. For our daughter's sake, I need to stay strong." Zion nodded resolutely. "Exactly. The three of us will join forces and keep living happily." Just then, Arya entered the room. "Mom, Dad, What are you talking about? I smiled at her tenderly. We were just saying how glad we are to have you, Arya. And how we want to keep making happy memories with you. She gave an embarrassed but joyful grin. Then Zion piped up, all right, let's all go out for a delicious dinner tonight. Where's that restaurant you love, Arya? The Italian place with the yummy pasta, she answered brightly. Our daughter's innocent smile soothed us, allowing us to forget our troubles for a while. It's decided then. Let's go eat a ton. With Zion's rallying cry, we started walking toward a bright future. I'm Liz, 38 years old. Standing by the window where the morning mist still lingers, I gaze at the quietly awakening cityscape with a warm cup of coffee in hand. It looks like today will be another busy day. Mom, is breakfast ready? The voice of my 8-year-old daughter Sophia from behind brings me back to reality. As I turn around, I see her still in her pajamas, looking up at me with her hair still mussed from sleep. Good morning, Sophia. It'll be ready soon. But first, go brush your hair, okay? Sophia nods silently and slowly leaves the living room. This is how our morning interactions usually go with my daughter, who has autism spectrum disorder. On my way to the kitchen, I hear a baby crying. Looks like Grace is awake. I'll check on her, Liz, my husband Chris says as he comes out of the bedroom and heads towards Grace's room. He's in his suit, looking as busy as any other morning. Thanks, Chris. Breakfast will be ready soon. As I prepare breakfast, I reflect on our lives. Chris and I were college classmates who fell in love after reconnecting following my divorce from my previous husband. He's busy every day as a lawyer at a large law firm, but he's a kind and family-oriented husband. I work from home as a graphic designer, struggling daily to balance work and childcare. My divorce from my previous husband was due to differences in understanding Sophia's disability. However, Chris understands and accepts Sophia's uniqueness. Grace's birth was a miracle for us. A baby we finally conceived after 3 years of fertility treatments. It was a huge emotional and financial burden, but it deepened our bond even further. Smells good. What's for breakfast? Chris appears in the kitchen, carrying Grace. Pancakes. Sophia's favorite, I answer, kissing the baby's cheek. As I look around at my family gathered at the breakfast table, a feeling of happiness wells up inside me. However, I can't help but be conscious of a presence that casts a shadow over that happiness. Chris's mother, Peggy. A former psychology professor at the University of Chicago, she's an intelligent woman with a strong will. She's overprotective of her only son, Chris, and has shown disapproval of our marriage from the start. Peggy's coming today, isn't she? I'm concerned that her attitude has become even colder since Grace's birth. Her complex personality and the secrets of her youth might be influencing her current behavior. Hey, Chris. Are you sure about this barbecue party today? Don't worry, Liz. Mom will be happy too. Although I nod at Chris's words, anxiety remains in my heart. No one yet knows that this happy morning scene is the prelude to an unimaginable tragedy. I was busy preparing the barbecue grill as early summer sunlight flooded the garden. The bustle of Lincoln Park Zoo could be faintly heard. "Liz, where's the ice?" I turned around at Chris's voice to see him standing there with a cooler. "In the freezer in the garage." "Hurry and bring it," I answer, wiping the sweat from my forehead. "It'll melt quickly in this heat." Several tables are already set up in the garden, decorated with balloons and a "Welcome Baby Grace" banner. This barbecue party, adopting the traditional American form of a baby shower, is also part of our neighborhood socializing. "Wow, it looks amazing." Our neighbor Sarah entered the garden, carrying a homemade apple pie. "Thank you, Sarah. I'm glad you could come," I greet her with a smile. I'm truly grateful for the warmth of our neighbors. As guests gradually begin to gather, the garden becomes lively. Chris's colleagues, my friends, and our neighbors. The diverse faces of the guests give it a distinctly American feel. However, amidst this pleasant atmosphere, there was one person who seemed out of place. Chris's mother, Peggy. "Hello, Mother," I greet her with a smile, but Peggy's expression remains hard. "Oh, Liz," she replies curtly, her eyes already searching for Grace. Grace is inside. "We're keeping her in the air-conditioned room because it's so hot," I explain. "I see." I sense a hint of disappointment in Peggy's voice. Something feels off. As the party progresses, I can't help but worry about Peggy's behavior. She seems to be constantly checking Grace's whereabouts and watching my movements. "Hey, Chris," I whisper to my husband. "Doesn't your mother seem a bit strange?" Chris frowns. "You think so?" "It's not like her, but..." At that moment, Peggy approaches us. "Liz, I'd like to talk to you about something." Peggy's voice carries a hint of suppressed anger. "Of course. What is it?" "About your past." Peggy looks around before continuing in a low voice. "Your divorce history and the time you were a single mother." I catch my breath. Why bring this up now? "Mother, is there a problem with that?" I ask. "Problem?" "Yes, a big problem." Peggy's eyes flash sharply. "You're ruining my son's life." "What?" My voice unintentionally rises. Chris hurriedly steps in. "Mom, stop it. This isn't the place to." But Peggy wouldn't listen. "You're after Chris's money, aren't you? I know about your struggles as a single mother. But I won't let you use my son." I freeze at Peggy's words. I had no idea she thought of me this way. The guests around us look confused by this unexpected turn of events. "Mother, you've misunderstood. I truly love Chris." Just then, we hear Grace crying from inside the house. "Oh, Grace is crying." Peggy suddenly changes her tone. "I'll go check on her." With that, Peggy quickly heads into the house. "Chris, we should go too," I say, unable to suppress my anxiety, pulling Chris's hand towards the house. As we enter, we see Peggy holding Grace in the living room. At first glance, it looks like a normal scene between a grandmother and grandchild, but something is off. Peggy's expression is more severe than I've ever seen it. "Mother, please give Grace to me." I reach out, but Peggy backs away. "Don't touch her." Her voice is trembling. This child. Chris approaches his mother with a confused expression. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Give Grace to Liz." But Peggy shakes her head violently. "No. This child isn't Chris's." Those words freeze the air in the room. "What are you saying, Mom?" Chris's voice is low, taking on a dangerous tone. "Grace is mine and Liz's child." It's a lie. A look of madness appears in Peggy's eyes. "You're being deceived, Chris." I say in a trembling voice, "Mother, please calm down. Grace is definitely Chris's." "Shut up." Peggy's scream makes Grace start crying. "You're a liar. You deceived my son and this child." Suddenly, Peggy starts moving. She runs towards the entrance, still holding Grace. "Peggy! Mom!" Our screams cut through the party's commotion. As we rush out into the garden, the guests are looking at us with surprised faces. Beyond their gaze, we see Peggy running away with Grace in her arms. "Liz, what happened?" Sarah asks worriedly. There's no time to answer. I chase after Peggy with all my might. Where is she going? Surely not. A terrible premonition crosses my mind. North Pond Lake, near Lincoln Park Zoo. Chris! The lake! I shout to Chris running behind me. I can see Peggy. She's running full speed towards the lakeshore. "Peggy, stop!" My scream cuts through the early summer air. Peggy stops at the lakeshore. As she turns around, I see a mixture of confusion and determination on her face. "This is to correct a mistake," Peggy's voice carries on the wind. And then, an unbelievable scene unfolds before my eyes. Peggy tries to throw Grace into the lake. No! I lunge forward with my last ounce of strength. I grab Peggy's arm. Grace's cry. Peggy's scream. My shout. Everything intersects in an instant. After a struggle, Grace's small body slips from my arms and flies through the air. Oh no, I couldn't protect her. As desperate thoughts cross my mind, my body moves on its own. A splash as I dive into the lake. Cold water envelopes my entire body. Where's Grace? I strain my eyes desperately. I faintly see white clothes. There. My high school swimming experience comes in handy now. I swim strongly towards Grace. I pull the small body close. As I try to return to the surface, suddenly my leg cramps. This is bad. The cold lake water is sapping my strength. Holding Grace, I desperately swim towards the surface. Liz! I hear Chris's voice from the shore. Here! I shout with a hoarse voice. I see Chris diving into the lake without hesitation. His strong arms lift me and Grace. Are you okay? How's Grace? She's safe, cough, cough. As we crawl onto the shore, I could already hear the sirens of an ambulance. Peggy was being restrained by police officers, standing there in a daze. Let me check the baby's condition, a paramedic takes Grace. I hand over my daughter with trembling hands. Please, help her. I fall to my knees, exhausted. Chris supports me. Liz, you did well. Grace is okay. I cry with relief at his words. Around us, party guests wear expressions of shock. Sarah brings us a blanket. Ma'am, you need to be examined too, another paramedic calls out to me. As I nod and stand up, my eyes meet Peggy's. Her eyes show a hint of regret. Why? Peggy doesn't answer my question. While the police take her away, Chris watches his mother leave with a complex expression. Chris, You don't need to say anything. Just rest now. I lean into his gentle voice as we get into the ambulance. As the sirens blare on the way to the hospital, I can't help but think about the meaning of this incident. Why did Peggy do such a thing? What will happen to our family now? As anxiety and fatigue wash over me, I close my eyes. Mrs. Liz Johnson. At the nurse's voice, I stand up from the waiting room chair. Chris is supporting me. Yes, that's me. I'll show you to the examination room. We have the baby's test results too. At those words, Chris and I exchange glances. Grace, please be okay. As we enter the white-walled examination room, a young female doctor is waiting. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. She shows a warm smile. Let me start with the good news. Your daughter is safe. At those words, my tension immediately dissipates. Chris squeezes my hand tightly. Thank you so much. My voice trembles. However, since she swallowed some water, we need to keep her under observation for 24 hours. We'll monitor her carefully due to the risk of pneumonia, Dr. Chen explains. Chris asks with a serious expression, is there anything else we need to be careful about? The risk of hypothermia has passed, but please be careful to keep her warm, at least for tonight. Also, we need to watch for stress reactions after the near-drowning incident. Dr. Chen adds gently, seeing our expressions, don't worry. Grace is a strong girl. Next, the doctor turns to me. Liz, about your test results, fortunately, there are no major issues. However, you're showing symptoms of acute stress disorder. Acute stress disorder. I repeat the words. Yes. There's a possibility it could develop into post-traumatic stress disorder due to this incident. I recommend counseling. Chris quietly says, we'll make sure she gets it. Dr. Chen nods and starts writing a prescription. I'll prescribe these medications. They're sleeping pills and anti-anxiety medication. Please use them appropriately. As we stand up, Dr. Chen adds, oh, and the police are here. They want to talk to both of you. Chris's expression clouds. I understand. As we step into the hallway, a uniformed police officer is waiting. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, may I have a word? Chris steps forward. My wife is tired. I'll. No, Chris, I place my hand on his arm. I'll talk too. The officer nods and guides us to a small room nearby. Please tell me about today's events in detail. Chris and I take turns explaining everything from the barbecue party to the incident at the lake. The officer takes notes, occasionally asking questions. Peggy Johnson is your mother-in-law, correct? Yes, Chris answers. My mother, she's been acting a bit strange lately. In what way? Chris hesitates before slowly beginning to speak. My mother had a secret. That I was adopted. I look at my husband in surprise. Chris is adopted. The officer frowns. How does that relate to this? Chris lets out a deep sigh. When my mother was young, she had an unwanted pregnancy. That child, me, she gave up for adoption. A heavy silence falls over the room. And that relates to this incident, the officer prompts. Yes, Chris nods. My mother had been carrying this secret for years. And when we had a child, I take over from my husband. Peggy convinced herself that I was deceiving Chris. That Grace wasn't really Chris's child. The officer nodded in understanding. I see. Peggy Johnson is currently undergoing a psychiatric evaluation. The next steps will be determined based on those results. As we stand up, the officer adds, You've been through a terrible experience. Please, make sure to rest. As we leave the room, fatigue suddenly overwhelms me. Liz, it's okay now. Let's go home, Chris says. I nod weakly. Yes, let's go home. But, what will happen to us now? With that anxiety in my heart, we quietly leave the hospital. The morning sun streams through the window as I wake up. Chris is breathing steadily beside me. If only yesterday's events had been a dream. I think as I head towards the baby's room. As I approach Grace's crib, I can see her small body moving. A sigh of relief escapes me. Good morning, my angel. As I pick her up, Grace touches my face with her tiny hands. That warmth gradually dissipates yesterday's fear. Liz. Chris's voice calls out. Are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. I turn around to see my husband standing there, looking worried. Grace seems fine too. Chris comes closer and embraces us. I'm so glad, really glad. Just then, the doorbell rings. Who could it be, so early in the morning? Chris heads to the front door. On the other side of the open door stands a familiar face. Dr. Chen. Good morning, Dr. Sarah Chen says with a smile. I'm sorry to intrude. I came to check on Grace. We invite the doctor in. Yesterday was quite an ordeal, Dr. Chen says as she examines Grace. But this little one seems to be doing very well. Chris shows a relieved expression. However, something else lingers in his eyes. Doctor, Chris speaks up. Do you have any information about my mother? Dr. Chen hesitates for a moment before slowly answering. Peggy is currently admitted to the psychiatric ward. While we don't have detailed diagnostic results yet. But I prompt. It's likely she has complex PTSD. Those words make the air in the room heavy. Complex PTSD. Chris murmurs. Is it because of what happened when she was young? Dr. Chen nods. Yes. It's possible that the trauma she's been suppressing for years has surfaced due to recent events. I can't help but interject. But why did she target Grace? That's a characteristic of complex PTSD, Dr. Chen begins to explain. Past trauma can connect with current situations, leading to extreme behavior. In Peggy's case, her past experience of loss might have transformed into a fear of losing her granddaughter. Chris lets out a deep sigh. My mother convinced herself that Liz was deceiving me. That Grace wasn't really my child. Yes, Dr. Chen nods. That belief likely led to her actions yesterday. I hold the baby close, thinking about Peggy. She was suffering too. What should we do now? I ask. Dr. Chen smiles gently. First, it's important to take care of yourselves. Then, support Peggy's treatment. Family therapy might be effective too. Chris quietly says, I understand. We'll do whatever we can for my mother. Dr. Chen stands up. Well, I'll be going now. Please don't hesitate to contact me if anything comes up. After seeing the doctor off, we sit silently in the living room. A heavy silence falls. Chris, I speak up. I understand how you feel. My husband looks at me with sad eyes. Liz, I'm so sorry for putting you and our daughter in danger. It's not your fault, I take his hand. We're family. Let's get through this together. Chris nods. You're right. Just then, we hear footsteps coming down the stairs. We turn to see Sophia standing there. Mom, Dad. Is Grandma not coming anymore? We exchange glances. How should we explain this? Sophia, come here, I beckon my daughter. Grandma isn't feeling well right now. But she'll get better. Sophia nods silently. Then suddenly, she walks over to the piano. Gentle notes begin to fill the room. The tune Sophia plays seems to express our family's feelings. We listen to our daughter's performance in silence. The music soothes emotions that words can't express. This is what our family looks like, I think. Even when hurt, we support each other. Outside the window, a new day was beginning. Let's start today's session. Dr. Jennifer Ross's calm voice echoes in the quiet room. Our family sits in chairs arranged in a circle. Chris, me, Sophia, and Peggy. Seeing Peggy, complex emotions well up inside me. It's the first time we've faced each other since that day. Her eyes show regret and anxiety. Peggy, would you like to start? Dr. Ross prompts. Peggy takes a deep breath and begins to speak. I've done something truly unforgivable. At those words, the air in the room freezes. Chris leans forward. Mom. Peggy continues. I've been hiding a secret for many years. Chris, you're not my biological child. Chris nods silently. He already knew this fact. When I was young, I had an unplanned pregnancy. And that child, you. I gave up for adoption. Peggy's voice trembles. Since then, I've lived with this guilt and regret. Dr. Ross quietly asks, how did that experience connect to the recent incident? Peggy closes her eyes, searching for words. When Grace was born, I was reminded of my past loss. And I was driven by the fear that I might lose Chris. But why did you think I was deceiving Chris? I can't help but interject. Peggy looks at me apologetically. Liz, when I learned about your past, your divorce history and financial struggles, I imagined the worst. I thought you might be using Chris. Mom, Chris's voice resonates low. Liz and I conceived Grace after a long struggle with infertility treatments. I never told you about that process. Chris begins to explain in detail the hardships we experienced with infertility treatments. The repeated failures, the days we almost gave up. The days we kept hoping despite everything. I take over from my husband. Peggy, Grace is undoubtedly Chris's child. She's the fruit of our love. Tears well up in Peggy's eyes. Oh, what have I done? I was so trapped in my own fears that I hurt you all. Dr. Ross says quietly, past traumas can greatly influence current behavior. Peggy, you're now facing and trying to overcome that trauma. In the silence that follows, Sophia suddenly stands up. Grandma, her voice is small but clear. I loved the cookies you used to make. Will you make them for me again? Peggy looks surprised, then smiles through her tears. Yes, of course, Sophia. At that moment, the atmosphere in the room softens. Dr. Ross says gently, family bonds can sometimes be hurt. But by understanding and forgiving each other, they can become even stronger. As the session ends, we quietly leave the room. Outside in the hallway, Peggy approaches me. Liz, I'm truly sorry. Her voice is shaking. For putting you and Grace in danger. I take a deep breath and look into Peggy's eyes. Peggy, you were suffering too. From now on, let's move forward together, understanding each other. Hope shines in Peggy's eyes. Thank you, Liz. Chris comes closer and gently embraces his mother and wife. We're family. Let's overcome this together. We nod silently at his words. Repairing damaged bonds isn't easy. But we have the courage to move forward, one step at a time. In the car on our way home, Sophia said in a small voice. Hey, why don't we all go on a picnic next time? We look at each other and smile. It feels like we're starting to see the shape of our new family. 6 months later, a small girl stands at the center of the stage, bathed in the brilliant lights of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra concert hall. Sophia takes a deep breath and sits at the piano. In the audience, we, her family, watch with nervous expressions. Chris whispers, "Do your best, Sophia." I hold Peggy's hand, sitting next to me. She smiles warmly in return. And then, beautiful music fills the hall. Sophia plays Chopin's Fantasy Impromptu. The audience is captivated by her music. I close my eyes and think back on the past 6 months. Family counseling, reconciliation with Peggy, and Grace's healthy growth. Our journey of overcoming difficulties resonates with Sophia's music. As the piece ends, loud applause erupts. Sophia looks at us with a beaming smile. At that moment, I was certain. No matter what trials await us, we can surely overcome them. Because we are family. On the way home, holding Grace, I looked up at the sky. A new morning awaits us, filled with hope. Mid-1990s, Michigan. In an affluent suburb of Michigan, the Brown family mansion stood as a symbol of success and happiness. With its pristine white walls, meticulously manicured lawn, and luxury cars parked in the driveway, everything appeared perfect. "Sarah, that dress is lovely," Diane Brown exclaimed, admiring her 12-year-old daughter in the living room. "Thank you, Mom. Daddy bought it for me," Sarah replied, beaming. The scene of the former model mother and her beautiful daughter was like a reflection in a mirror. Diane's long blonde hair and refined features, coupled with Sarah's radiant blue eyes, made them look as if they had stepped out of a fashion magazine. 10-year-old Emily watched silently from the corner of the sofa. Her arms and neck bore the raw, red marks of severe eczema. She gritted her teeth, trying to resist the urge to scratch. "Emily, are you scratching again?" Diane's voice cut through the air, cold and sharp. "I'm sorry, Mom, but it's so itchy." Emily's words were interrupted by the sound of the front door opening. "Daddy's home!" Sarah cried out joyfully. John Brown entered the room, his suit impeccable, his smile wide. He exuded the authority of a successful businessman. "How about that, Sarah? Today's presentation was a huge success." "As expected, Daddy," Sarah exclaimed. John lifted Sarah and spun her around, their laughter filling the room. The light from the expensive chandelier illuminated their happy faces. Emily quietly stood up and approached her father, a faint hope in her heart. "Welcome home, Dad," she said softly. But John's eyes never left Sarah. It was as if Emily were invisible. "Oh, Emily." "Right, welcome home," he said dismissively before heading to his study, the sound of his expensive leather shoes echoing in the hallway. Emily felt the sting of exclusion from her family circle. She gazed at her reflection in the large mirror, her red, swollen skin and dry, flaky hands, and sighed deeply. The girl in the mirror seemed to belong to another world entirely. That night, Emily sat alone in her room, applying ointment to her skin. She winced each time the cold cream touched her raw skin. From the next room, she could hear Sarah playing Chopin's Nocturne on the piano. The elegant melody only emphasized Emily's loneliness. "Why just me?" Emily whispered, fighting back tears as she endured the itching. Day after day, her yearning for her family's love went unfulfilled, slowly eroding her spirit. Outside her window, the full moon shone brightly, a silent witness to Emily's solitude. A rainy Saturday afternoon. Gray clouds hung low, releasing a fine mist over the Brown family's expansive garden. An old stone well stood silently, its moss-covered walls and rusted pulley telling of its long history. "Emily, come here for a moment," John's voice cut through the sound of rain. Emily approached cautiously. Her parents and Sarah stood around the well, unnatural smiles on their faces. "This well has special powers," John said, smiling gently. But there was an eerie light in his eyes. "If you go inside, your eczema will be cured." Emily's eyes lit up with hope. The possibility of being free from the eczema that had tormented her for so long seemed like a dream. "Really?" Emily's voice trembled. "Yes, Emily," Diane continued, her voice as sweet as honey. "Go on, climb down." As Emily hesitated, John pushed her forcefully from behind. Emily screamed as she tumbled into the dark well. There was a splash of cold water, and she found herself enveloped in darkness. "Dad! Mom! Help me!" Emily's screams echoed from the bottom of the well. Her body shook with fear and cold. But her parents just peered into the well with cold expressions. "This should cure your eczema," John's cruel words mixed with the sound of rain. His voice dripped with the disgust he had hidden for so long. Sarah trembled. Her sister's screams and her parents' cruelty, it all seemed unreal. Her mind went blank. "Dad, please help Emily." Sarah cried out desperately. "Be quiet, Sarah," Diane said sternly, her eyes as cold as ice. "This is a family matter." Emily's cries gradually weakened. In the cold water and darkness, she was losing consciousness. Sarah felt overwhelmed by helplessness. She couldn't stop her parents. She couldn't save her sister. Guilt squeezed her heart. Suddenly, a strong voice cut through the rain. "What on earth are you doing?" It was Mrs. Grace from next door, running towards them. Her eyes blazed with anger. Mrs. Grace quickly assessed the situation and called down into the well. "Emily, are you all right? I'll get you out right away." Her voice was filled with strong determination. Mrs. Grace acted swiftly, using a nearby rope to lower herself into the well. The sound of the rope scraping against the well's edge heightened the tension. A few minutes later, she emerged cradling a soaking wet Emily. Emily's lips were blue, her body cold. But her faint breathing showed she was still alive. "Are you out of your minds?" Mrs. Grace's voice shook with anger as she berated the parents. Her eyes burned with fury. Emily shivered from cold and fear. Mrs. Grace held her close, whispering in her ear. Her voice enveloped Emily like a warm blanket. "It's okay, Emily. You're a strong girl. One day, they'll regret this." Those words lit a small flame of hope in Emily's heart. Though the rain continued to fall, the world around Emily seemed to brighten just a little. At Mrs. Grace's home. In the warm, sunlit living room of Mrs. Grace's house, Emily sat quietly. The walls were covered in cheerful wallpaper, and colorful flowers bloomed on the windowsill. It was a stark contrast to the cold atmosphere of the Brown household. "Emily, here's some tea," Mrs. Grace said gently, holding out a steaming cup. Emily nodded slightly and took the warm cup in both hands. "Thank you, Aunt Grace," she said softly. Mrs. Grace's face lit up at those words. Her eyes shone with affection. "You're welcome, dear," she replied. A quiet bond of trust was beginning to form between them. Though Emily's skin was still red and irritated, her expression was gradually regaining a sense of peace. Mrs. Grace gently stroked Emily's hair. "Emily, from now on, this is your home. You can relax here." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. The love she had sought for so long, it was here. Meanwhile, at the Brown house. "Sarah, how was your violin lesson today?" Diane asked Sarah in the living room, surrounded by expensive paintings and ornaments. Despite the luxury, the atmosphere in the room was heavy and oppressive. Sarah answered expressionlessly, "Fine. Fine isn't good enough. You're a special child." Diane's voice was tinged with impatience. Sarah remained silent, staring out the window at the garden where she used to play with Emily. A lonely swing swayed in the wind, unused. "I wonder how Emily is doing," Sarah murmured. Diane's expression clouded at Sarah's words. "Forget about that girl. You have a bright future ahead of you." Sarah closed her eyes painfully at those words. She felt crushed between her guilt as a sister and the weight of her parents' expectations. Something deep in her heart seemed to crack. That night, Sarah sat in her room, staring at a photo of Emily. It was a picture from a few years ago, showing the two sisters hugging and smiling. She gently traced the photo with her finger. "I'm sorry, Emily." A tear fell. In Sarah's heart, the bond between sisters still burned quietly. Outside, the night wind rustled through the trees, making a mournful sound. At Mrs. Grace's house, Emily had just fallen asleep. Her sleeping face was peaceful. She seemed to be sleeping soundly for the first time in a long while. Mrs. Grace quietly closed the door. "I want that child to be happy," she whispered into the quiet night. Late 1990s, a high school in Michigan. In the hallway, 17-year-old Sarah Brown was always surrounded by a crowd. Her beauty and talent were the talk of the school. "Sarah, you're definitely going to win the next competition." "Thank you. But I still need more practice," Sarah replied modestly, though her expression was confident. However, her eyes held a certain emptiness. Behind her glorious success, her heart was plagued by a sense of hollowness. After school, in the music room. Sarah was engrossed in violin practice. The melody was beautiful, but somehow sad. "Sarah, that was a wonderful performance," said Mr. Johnson, the music teacher. "Thank you," Sarah replied flatly. Her voice lacked the passion it once had. "But something seems to be missing, as if your heart isn't in it," Mr. Johnson observed. Sarah started at his words. I may have lost something," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. Meanwhile, at Mrs. Grace's house, Emily was intensely focused on her research. Around her were scattered herbs and cosmetic ingredients. "Emily, are you trying a new formula again?" Mrs. Grace asked with interest. "Yes, I'm researching natural ingredients that are effective for eczema," Emily replied, her eyes full of determination. "I want to help people who have the same struggles I did." Mrs. Grace smiled gently at Emily's words. "Your kindness will surely save many people." Emily continued her work silently. She looked like a completely different person from the fragile girl of 5 years ago. The eczema on her arms wasn't completely healed, but it was much better than before. "I hope this works," Emily said, picking up a new cream. At that moment, a tear rolled down her cheek. "Sarah, I wish you could use this too." As she whispered her sister's name, Emily immersed herself in her research once again. Outside the window, the setting sun painted the sky red, as if symbolizing Emily's passion. In the city center, John and Diane were dining at an upscale restaurant. "How is Sarah doing?" John asked. His voice lacked the warmth of a father concerned for his daughter. "She's been a bit down lately. But don't worry, I'll make sure she stays on track," Diane replied. John nodded indifferently. "I see. She's the pride of our family. Make sure she doesn't disappoint us." Their conversation sounded more like a business discussion. It had completely lost the warmth of a family. As night fell, Sarah and Emily were each beginning to walk their own paths. An invisible thread still connected them. Would that thread one day bring them back together? Early 2000s, a family home in Michigan. A family was gathered in front of the television, watching the local morning news. And now, we have a special feature on a noteworthy young entrepreneur, the announcer's voice cut through the quiet morning air. The screen changed to show Emily. She was confidently explaining her company's eczema care products. "Our products are committed to natural ingredients, pursuing a formula that's gentle on the skin of those suffering from eczema." Emily's voice was strong and persuasive. She bore no resemblance to the timid girl she once was. "We interviewed Emily Brown, CEO of Phoenix Skin Care," the announcer continued. At those words, the Brown family's living room froze. "Emily," Diane whispered in a trembling voice. John stared at the screen in silence. His eyes reflected surprise, regret, and something else. "Our goal is to give hope to all people suffering from eczema." Emily's words struck the Brown household like a thunderbolt. Sarah watched the TV with a complex expression. Should she be genuinely happy for her sister's success, or feel depressed comparing it to her own situation? Her emotions were in turmoil. "Emily, amazing," Sarah said, tears glistening in her eyes. Suddenly, John stood up. "We need to contact her," he said urgently. Diane hurriedly tried to stop him. "Wait, John. How? I don't care. Find her." John's voice was a mix of impatience and desire. The living room phone began to ring. The display showed unknown. John picked up the receiver. "Hello, Brown residence. It's been a long time, Father." It was Emily's voice. John's face turned pale. "Emily, you. It's been 5 years, hasn't it? You saw the TV, I suppose." Emily's voice was calm, but underneath, a whirlpool of emotions was churning. "Yes. I saw. You've done well for yourself." John's voice trembled. "What do you want?" Emily's question was met with a moment of silence. "You know, I want to see you. We need to talk." Sarah and Diane listened to John's conversation with bated breath. The atmosphere in the room became tense. "All right. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. At my office." Emily's voice was filled with determination. The call ended. John stared blankly at the receiver. "What are you going to do, Dad?" Sarah asked. John couldn't answer. Outside the window, birds were singing their morning song. But the Brown family had no room to feel the arrival of spring. After 5 years, the time for a fateful encounter was approaching. Phoenix Skincare Office. The CEO's office on the top floor of a high-rise building was enveloped in silence, shutting out the bustle of the city. The large windows offered a panoramic view of the city. Emily took a deep breath, facing her heavy wooden desk. The clock struck 2 p.m. A knock on the door. "Come in," Emily's voice was surprisingly calm. The door opened, and John, Diane, and Sarah entered. The air in the room froze at this encounter after 5 years. "It's been a while." "Emily," John's voice trembled slightly. Emily stood up and faced the three. Her presence exuded the dignity of a confident young CEO, with no trace of the timid girl she once was. "Please, sit down," Emily gestured to 3 chairs. After a moment of silence, John spoke. "Emily, we heard about your success." "Let's get to the point," Emily calmly interrupted. "Why did you come here?" John and Diane exchanged glances. Then Diane forced out her words. "Emily, we want you back." Emily's eyes flashed sharply at those words. "Take me back. You're the ones who threw me into a well 5 years ago." John hastily began to make excuses. "That time, it was a mistake. Now that I have value to you." Emily's words cut like a sharp blade. "No. We." Diane's words trailed off. Emily slowly stood up. "You're after money, aren't you?" John and Diane's expressions froze. Emily gave a cold laugh at their reaction. As I expected. But unfortunately, Emily took out a document from her desk drawer. This is a pledge to donate all my assets to organizations supporting eczema patients. It's already been notarized. The color drained from John and Diane's faces. In other words, I have no money to give you. And you have no right to receive it. Emily's words were met with silence. At that moment, Sarah stepped forward. Emily. Emily's expression softened slightly. Sarah. I'm sorry. I couldn't help you then. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. Emily quietly approached Sarah. Sarah, you were a victim too. The two embraced wordlessly, as if trying to bridge the 5-year gap. John and Diane watched the two in a daze. Now then, Emily's expression turned cold again. Please leave. Don't ever appear before me again. Wait! John shouted. Give us a chance. A chance? Emily's voice resonated low. Can you imagine how much despair I felt in that well? John and Diane were at a loss for words. You have plenty of time to regret. Goodbye. Emily's words carried the weight of a final judgment. John and Diane left the room with slumped shoulders. Sarah turned back to Emily one last time and said, Can we meet again? Emily nodded slightly. Yes, definitely. The door closed. Emily stood by the window, looking down at the city. Her eyes held a light of determination. Her future life would be not only for herself but for those who suffer. Emily made this vow to herself. Autumn 2005, Michigan. A large crowd had gathered in front of the Phoenix Skincare headquarters building. Welcome to Phoenix Skincare's 5th anniversary celebration event, Emily's voice resonated through the microphone. Now 29 years old, Emily surveyed the audience with a confident expression. Her appearance showed no trace of the timid girl she once was. Our company is not just a profit-seeking enterprise. Our mission is to give hope to all those suffering from eczema. The audience erupted in applause. After the event, Emily took a moment to relax in her office. Her secretary brought in a letter. Ms. Brown, it's from Sarah. Emily quietly opened the envelope. Dear Emily, I've started walking my own path now. Free from our parents' expectations, I've found what I truly want to do. I'm teaching music to children. Your courage gave me the strength to live. Thank you. I look forward to the day we can perform together. With love. Sarah. A gentle smile spread across Emily's face. Sarah. I'm glad. She looked out the window. The autumn sunset was bathing the city in a warm glow. That night, Emily was quietly gazing at the starry sky from her home terrace. Aunt Grace, are you watching over me? Mrs. Grace had passed away 2 years ago. Her last words echoed in Emily's ears. You're a strong girl, Emily. But strength isn't everything. Don't forget to be kind too. Emily took a deep breath. She placed her hand on her chest, feeling her own heartbeat. I will continue my journey. For those who suffer. And, for myself. From afar, she heard the phone ringing. Emily returned to the living room and picked up the receiver. Hello, this is Emily. Emily. It was Sarah's voice. Sarah. What's wrong? I'm sorry for calling at this hour. But I wanted to see you. Sarah's voice was trembling. Emily hesitated for a moment but quickly made up her mind. I understand. I'll come right away. 30 minutes later, they were sitting on a park bench. The moonlight gently illuminated their figures. Do you think you can forgive our parents? Sarah asked tentatively. Emily exhaled deeply. Forgiving and forgetting are two different things. But I won't let them control me anymore. Sarah nodded silently. What about you, Sarah? Me? I've become free. Emily, it's thanks to you. The two sisters leaned against each other quietly. The wounds of the past weren't completely healed yet. But they had certainly taken a step towards a new future. Hey, Emily. Our story isn't over yet, is it? Emily smiled gently. No, it's only just begun. In the night sky, a new star began to shine. It was like a light of hope illuminating their future. Emily and Sarah stood up, holding hands. Before them lay an unknown future. It might be full of challenges. But together, they could overcome anything. Well then, shall we go? Emily's voice broke the night's silence. Yes, together, Sarah replied. Their steps were light yet strong. Overcoming the past and stepping into the future. This was the beginning of Emily and Sarah's new story. Help! My house is on fire. At 4 a.m., I received a sudden phone call from my 6-year-old granddaughter. Get help from your mom right away. I was screaming hard at my granddaughter on the other end of the phone. Mom hasn't gotten up since my dad beat her. I was surprised by the shocking words that came out of her mouth, and I just drove my car fast and headed there. Then, there was an unbelievable scene. Such a thing. I was speechless at the worst situation and collapsed on my knees. At the same time, I was filled with uncontrollable anger towards my son-in-law. My daughter, Charlotte, had been shy and timid since she was little. She was always the kind of girl who would stick to me and my husband and hide. I was deeply moved by the sight of Charlotte walking down the Virgin Road with her father. The person Charlotte chose to marry was Milo, who was 4 years older than her and a senior at the same company. In contrast to Charlotte, it was said that he was determined and leading. It was when he came to my house to greet their marriage. Nice to meet you. I'm dating Charlotte and I'm sure I'll make her happy, so can you forgive me for marrying her? He was a little nervous, but my husband and I had a good impression of him when he clearly declared, and we decided to approve the marriage. I never imagined that my withdrawn daughter would introduce a man to us. I felt a little lonely, but most of all, I was happy that Charlotte had chosen her partner. You found a nice person. Yes, thank you. I have to do my best to support him properly from now on. I felt a strong determination in her words, and I was just amazed at the positive change in her feelings. At the strong request of Milo, Charlotte quit her job after marriage and became a full-time housewife. The two of them bought a second-hand house and started their newlywed life. Milo has asked if you would like to have a meal with us. How about next Sunday? Is it okay? Isn't he tired from work? Yes, it's okay. As we're family, he wants you not to worry about it. Took advantage of the generosity of them. We have meals together more and more, and each time I felt the strength of Milo's pertinence towards Charlotte. It was when Charlotte failed the dish they were supposed to serve that day. Why would you make such a simple mistake? Anyone could have done it with the recipe. Don't you understand what is written? I'm sorry. Milo's voice was raging, and Charlotte was looking down with a very sad expression. What's wrong? Are you okay? Mother-in-law, I'm sorry, it looks like Charlotte has messed up. Oh yes, I'm going to help Charlotte, so Milo, will you keep me company with my husband? But then I feel so sorry. My husband beckoned the hesitant son-in-law and drank with him, so the situation was settled. Mom, I'm sorry you came all this way. It's okay, we all make mistakes, and the more you do this from now on, the fewer mistakes you'll make. I encouraged Charlotte by saying that, but as a parent, it was still sad to see Charlotte being told terrible things in front of me. I regretted myself that if I had taught her more, Charlotte and I might not have felt so sad. A few months later, I received a happy report from Charlotte and her husband that they had a baby. Milo cares for Charlotte, lovingly stroking her belly, which is still almost unbulging. When I saw the two of them, I thought, this is how they should gradually become a couple and then a family. Thanks to you, Charlotte seems to be relieved and I can do my best at work. Not only during pregnancy, but also after giving birth, I occasionally visited Charlotte and her husband to support Charlotte. Of course, there was also a lot of reason because I could meet my cute first grandchild. However, it was about 6 months after the birth of my granddaughter, Sage. The attitude of the son-in-law, who I thought was calm, changed little by little. Stop Sage from crying right now. If you can't do that, you're an unfit mother. Perhaps irritated by the baby, Milo yelled in the strongest tone I had ever heard. However, this only made the baby cry more and more. I tried my best to be gentle and cuddle up to my son-in-law. Milo, calm down. Sage is also surprised. If you come home from work and your baby cries all the time, you'll be tired. But, mother-in-law, don't spoil Charlotte too much. In the middle of the conversation, he covered his words and said it harshly to me. And as it was, the son-in-law walked out of the room. Mom, I'm sorry for making you feel uncomfortable. I'm fine, but is it always like that? He looks so tired lately. Milo may be yelling at Charlotte on a daily basis. It was very painful to see the sad face of Charlotte as she spoke in a deceptive manner. Since then, I haven't seen Milo at Charlotte's house. Maybe I made an unnecessary statement. Such anxiety crossed my mind, and I was worried about Charlotte, who was losing energy day by day. What's wrong? What's bothering you? Nothing, it's okay. No matter how many times I asked, she kept repeating it, and Charlotte didn't want to say anything, and she gradually blocked it out. I wonder if she's tired from childcare. Just when I thought I needed to be a little more attentive, I was called to talk to her and went there. Mom, please don't come to my house anymore. What's wrong with you saying that all of a sudden? To be honest, I couldn't hide my shock at Charlotte's words. I thought if I didn't do it on my own, instead of relying on my mom all the time, I wouldn't be a proper mother forever. That's not true. If you have someone to help you, it's not a bad thing to rely on them, right? I tried to talk to her, but she didn't agree with me at all. Okay, but if you have any problems, don't hesitate to tell me. Thank you, Mom. Take Sage with you once in a while to come visit us. I was still anxious, but I wondered if it was my growth as a parent, so I decided to keep an eye on Charlotte. After that, as promised, she began to bring her child to visit us from time to time, but I was worried about Charlotte's lack of energy. She just told me that it was okay when I asked anything, and I was at a loss as to what to do. After Sage went to kindergarten, I didn't see them as much as I did, and when she was 6 years old, she seemed to be busy with something, and they rarely came to visit my house. Then, one morning, around 4 o'clock in the morning, my cell phone rang throughout the room. Who is it from early in the morning? When I picked up my smartphone in my sleepy eyes, it showed Charlotte on the screen. Hello? What's the matter with you at this hour? Grandma, help me, my house is on fire. On the other end of the phone, I heard the voice of Sage, who was about to start crying, not Charlotte. Sage? Where is your mom? Get help from Mom right away. All at once I was bloodthirsty and I was shouting hard at Sage. Mom hasn't gotten up since my dad beat her. What do you mean? Perhaps because she had been holding back for a long time, Sage began to cry loudly. It's all right. I'll go right now. Anyway, get out of the house right away. I called 911, required for fire trucks and ambulance, and then my husband and I drove fast to our daughter's house. It should be a lie. When we arrived, an unimaginable and horrifying scene came to life. The fire spread more than I expected, and I was stunned speechless. As the firefighting effort took place in front of me, I was helpless and collapsed to my knees in shock. When I was being held by my husband and watching the situation, Charlotte came out on a stretcher from inside. Charlotte! Charlotte! From behind her, I could see Sage being held by the emergency services. Grandma! When Sage noticed me, she immediately ran up to me and hugged me. I was scared. I see, but I'm glad you're safe. I hugged Sage with all my might. And I was to ride in the ambulance with Sage and Charlotte. Fortunately, Sage was evacuated outside the house, and only suffered minor burns to her hands, which was not serious. Charlotte, on the other hand, was unconscious and went straight to the intensive care unit. The doctor told me with a serious expression, "I want you to be prepared," and I couldn't hide my upset. However, I was determined not to cause anxiety to Sage, so I was motivated and behaved with dignity. Anyway, I kept calling my son-in-law to let him know what was going on, but it just rang and there was no sign of connection. "Milo, where and what are you doing?" I decided to come back later and first talk to Sage. "Can you tell me what Dad did to Mom?" Yes, I woke up to Mom's voice saying, "Stop it," and Dad's loud voice. When the granddaughter went to the front of the room where their voices were heard, Milo raised his hand to Charlotte and then went somewhere. She was worried about her mom and went into the room after her dad was gone. "I was told to give this bear to your grandma." Charlotte said that, pointing to a stuffed animal on the shelf and hanging Sage her phone along with it. "I was next to Mom the whole time, and I smelled something weird, and when I went over, there was a fire." Sage immediately went back to her mom's room, but no matter how much she called Mom, Charlotte wouldn't wake up, and she didn't know what to do, so she called me. "I see. Thank you for contacting me." "Yes." "Hey, Grandma. Do you think Mommy is okay?" "The doctors are doing their best, so it should be okay." After gently calling out to calm her down, I received the stuffed animal that Sage had entrusted to me. "Is there anything inside?" I felt a strange weight, and when I looked closely, I saw a mark that looked like it had been sewn together later. When I pried it open and looked inside, I found a certain thing in it along with a letter from Charlotte. Why is there such a thing? Just when I was wondering, I received a call back from my son-in-law. "What's the matter with you so early in the morning? Your house caught fire and Charlotte and Sage were taken to the hospital." "I see. I've been out of the prefecture on a business trip since yesterday. I don't think I'll be able to go home until later tonight." My son-in-law didn't seem too surprised, didn't worry about his wife and child, and didn't ask anything more. What the hell is he going to do with a lie? After I hung up the phone, I felt an uncontrollable anger build up inside me. The story of Milo, which was at odds with Sage, filled me with distrust of him. Sage was also hospitalized for treatment of burns, just in case, and I left the hospital and hurried to Charlotte's house. I didn't realize how bad it was. The house was half burned, and the only thing that remained was the garage and the surrounding area. I hope it's safe. After reading Charlotte's letter, I was digging through the burnt ruins for a purpose. And when I came to the answer, I was convinced. At the same time, the ringtone rang and I rushed back to the hospital. I will never forgive. I'm going to throw into hell. I vowed to do so, and while trembling with anger, I decided to take revenge on my son-in-law. Later that night, a solemn-looking Milo came to our house. After I got home, I contacted him and said, "Charlotte is gone, and I want to talk to you about the future." "Where's Charlotte?" "She's not here. Sage is in the hospital for treatment of burns." "I see." The son-in-law didn't change his expression, he just nodded, and I couldn't read what he was thinking. "We've made the arrangements for the future. I'm sorry, I didn't discuss anything with you about anything." "No, I'm sorry that I had to leave everything to you, thank you. It seemed he felt a little sorry for us. Milo bowed deeply. It's so sudden that I can't sort out my feelings, so I want to leave the funeral and all the procedures after that to you. That's not right, is it? If I don't distract myself at work, I don't think I can keep myself going due to shock. He stood up with his head down, and then he walked towards the front door. I'm not going to let it be over here. So I pulled out of my pocket a letter from Charlotte. The fact that you are reading this now means that I am no longer in this world. I'm sorry I've worried you all this time. As I began to read with my voice trembling, my son-in-law stopped walking. Is that her testament? Does that mean that my wife set fire to herself? She's not that weak of a person, just listen to the end. But that is. Milo said with a disgruntled voice, but I snapped Charlotte's words to him. It's all due to my husband. What? It cannot be. Charlotte's going to try to trap me at the end. Just when he seemed to deny it out loud, Milo began to sniffle and pretended to cry. Can you excuse me even if you see this? I opened the computer I had beside me and showed the screen to my son-in-law. This is. His speechless expression turned pale. What was reflected there was exactly the scene where he brought a woman into the house and had an affair. Why do you have such a thing? Charlotte had this in a stuffed animal in the living room. I held out a small camera in front of him. Why did she do such a selfish thing? My son-in-law became angry and slammed his fist on the table. In Charlotte's letter, she expressed concern about her husband's actions, saying that he might be having an affair while she was away. After the birth of her child, Charlotte, who had been suspicious of Milo for not returning home and treating her coldly, was trying to prove by herself. What the hell is that? Milo tries to leave the room while mumbling about it, perhaps because he had become inconvenienced. Where are you going? It's not finished. Is it still something? It's enough. My son-in-law looked disgusted and sighed heavily. Milo started raising his hand on a daily basis because he was so preoccupied with his cheating partner that he got in the way of me. Again, without any evidence. Let's finish then. Do you think I don't have any? And you can't end it like this. I slapped the video in front of my son-in-law again. Is it about time you explain what that means? Show. Cornered, he lifted the computer and threw it to the floor vigorously. What are you doing? I wish she could just shut up and obey what I say, but since our kid was born, she's been expressing her opinion more and more. What's wrong with that? She's trying to make me take care of the kid too, and it's annoying. I'm working outside, so childcare is a woman's job. Milo must have had a rigid way of thinking. But that was not a good reason to raise his hand. Charlotte is certainly a quiet person, but isn't she trying to change little by little with the birth of Sage, who is more important than herself? I don't want her to do that, and if she had been at my mercy, I wouldn't have cheated on her or raised my hand. My son-in-law didn't seem offended at all, and finally became defiant. Well, Charlotte is gone now, and it's over, so it's okay. Nothing's good, isn't it? Sage says that just before the fire, Dad raised his hand to Mom and left. You can't rely on what the kid says. He was grinning, snorting. Besides, I have been on a business trip since the day before, so there's no way I can do that. Confidently, he tries to dismiss Sage's testimony as nothing. Then why is the person who went on a business trip shown here? I pulled my phone out of my pocket and pointed the video at Milo. As Sage said, there was my son-in-law who had raised his hand to Charlotte just before the fire. The firefighter said that the fire was likely caused by someone setting it on. Perhaps you did it. Oh, I don't know that. Oh, really? Then, what does this mean? What? Milo was surprised at the amount of evidence that came out one after another. Immediately after my son-in-law ran outside, it was perfectly recorded that the fire had broken out. Why are there such things left? Charlotte had secretly set up a camera in the garage as well, and I'm really glad it wasn't on fire. It was the daughter's action to capture the decisive moment of the affair, but my son-in-law would never have imagined that the crime would be exposed in such a way. I'm going to the police with this. Wait, I won't let you do that. He had a terrifying look on his face and attacked me to snatch my phone from me. Stop it. I'm telling you to stop. I resisted, but I was pushed down, and my son-in-law got on top of me and tried to raise his hand to me. Stop it. Then, here, in the next room, my husband, who was recording the whole thing, stopped it. Stop, old man. I said get off me. Milo was easily seized by my husband and was unable to move. I got this from Charlotte. I held out a piece of paper that I had in my bag to him. What do you mean by this? I mean, my son-in-law didn't seem to know what's what. That was right, because what I gave him was the divorce papers with Charlotte's signature in column on it. In fact, thanks to the doctor's diligent treatment, Charlotte managed to survive. The phone call I received when I retrieved the camera in the garage was meant to let me know. How could you tell such a lie that your daughter is gone even though you are parents? My son-in-law, who understood everything, raised his voice. I haven't said she passed away, have I? What's gone is Charlotte's heart, which was so weak to say anything. So you decided on the rest of the arrangements on your own. Aren't you talking about her funeral? Oh, that's about Charlotte's moving. Don't be silly. You fool me. He went on a rampage, desperately trying to shake off the arm that was still being held by my husband. Oh, yes, she said she is going to file a damage report. If the fact that you set it on fire is added, the crime will be quite serious, won't it? As soon as he heard that, Milo held his head, changed his attitude, and started crying at me. No, please don't. If you do that, I'll be finished. We're family, aren't we? And Charlotte and Sage were saved. You're not a family member, and people who do such horrible things should go to hell. I refused him bluntly, and he stood there in a daze. After that, I presented all the evidence to the police, and Milo was arrested. I heard that he was charged with a serious crime and that he would be living behind bars for the time being. And the divorce with Charlotte was officially finalized. She charged a total of $150,000, $80,000 for alimony and medical expenses due to emotional distress, $70,000 for child support, and $10,000 for the cheating partner. Milo's parents took care of all the expenses. They said that he would pay for his sins and return it when he came out, but after that, they would disinherit him. It took a while, but she was safely discharged from the hospital and moved into our house with Sage. While watching over Charlotte and Sage, who are gradually recovering their energy, I would like to wish them happiness and support them firmly from now on.